that's the problem I've got at the moment. Obviously, I'm doing stupidly long hours at the moment, getting home and then all the paperwork to do. It's having a balance, right? And that's something I'm struggling with now because I've got a big job now, but I've got to keep work coming in.
So I'm Matthew Cox and I'm a business strategist. I've run and grown multiple businesses over the last 15 or so years. Join me on my journey with helping other entrepreneurs figure out what their goals are, how to set them and how to achieve them. So we're now going to get stuck into the podcast. Grab yourself a coffee, put your headphones in, go for a walk the dog around the field, whatever it is you want to do. I really hope you enjoy this and you can glean some useful content for us as I help this owner figure out their strategy and reach their goals. Well, welcome, Luke. So today we've got Luke Martin from Robert Martin Roofing Services, family-run business for a fair period of time. So I won't give too much information. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the business and the history and stuff?
Yeah. So in 1986, the year I was born, my dad formed a company called Seaford Roofing with another guy, and in early 90s he went on his own and formed Robert Martin Roofing. Fast forward 4 years later, wherever it is, we're here. We are where we are today, really. Obviously my dad's no longer around, passed away a couple of years ago. I've been running the ship probably for the last 5-6 years anyway. So yeah, it was a bit of a transition, but no, things are good. Things are good.
Oh, that's good. And you cover primarily the southeast, like London downwards? Or?
Yeah, we've got a builder we go to in Southampton, who we've had for about 15 plus years. We've been pretty loyal to him. But he can be in Southampton or he can be as like High Wycombe.
Yes. So
like in London area. So yeah, I've got a job to do up near Heathrow for him in about a month's time. So yeah. We travel.
Yeah. And all types of roofing, flat roofing, pitch roofing, all that
Yeah. I mean, predominantly we like to stay in flat roofing. But you know, we tile as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's good.
So Luke, one of the things I like to ask all the guests when they come on, just right at the beginning here, is what were you like at school? What was young Luke like before you went on your journey to being flat roof specialist?
Probably a little bit arrogant, a little bit cocky, full of myself for sure. Probably not the nicest of person at times as well. Quite ashamed to say that as well. I think as I got to like year 10 and 11, I was a lot better, but early years I was a bit of a cocky, arrogant little git. I was a very good footballer. So that I always found that coming toe with how I was as a person. Yeah. But as I got to my later years in school, I sort of leveled out a little bit.
Yeah.
But I probably wasn't the nicest of kids up until year 10.
Yeah. And what about your kind of teenageness, if you like, up until like, maybe you kind of
school.
Like
16 to 18.
Kind of 15, 16, 18. That sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was a lot better. I was, still playing a decent level of football. I was getting a bit of money for playing football. I played a lot of snooker as well and beer and stuff. I was a lot better then. I think I've definitely matured as soon as I left school a lot more. But yeah, up and probably to about year 10, I probably wasn't the nicest of people. I'll admit that myself. But definitely got better as I left school for sure.
Yeah, matured.
There's probably a few people now who would probably say he was horrible or not a nice person. And those who if they listen to this, I'm sorry, and I hope I'm not that person now.
Yeah, sure. But I think that is fairly brave to say that.
Yeah,
and shows that you've come a long way from that because the year 9, year 10 of yourself would not have seen that at all, but now you can see that.
I can see it now.
I remember having some blistering arguments with my mum when I was a kid and calling her every name under the sun and thinking to myself I was in the right, but now I look back and I think, that wasn't...
I wasn't like that to my parents. I wasn't quite to my parents. My mum was quite strict. My dad was...
Yeah.
I only saw my dad once every week or something, but I wasn't quite like that with my mum. It was more to some of the kids at school where, they probably know who they are, and I was, not the nicest person at the time, but.
everyone looks back on their past, but what you've done is you've turned that around and then seen that as well.
Yeah.
So no, it's good. And schoolwork wise,
late. Well, because I knew I had a job.
Always late.
Well, if I wasn't going to be a footballer, which
Yeah.
I knew probably in about early year 11 that, you know, I'd play a decent level, but not to a level where I wanted to play. No, I always had dad. You know, I always had a job. I always had a decent job to fall back on, really. So I was good at PE. I think I got like a B in PE. Yeah. And that was my best result.
Yeah.
The rest were crap.
Naturally a B in PE.
Yeah, I was great at PE.
Yeah.
That was it.
That was it. Super. So obviously we're here today just to have a chat about the business and the rest of it, and kind of see what your goals are and what hurdles there are to get in them, really. So I don't know. We had a little chat off air about the kind of maybe immediate plans, like your 1 year or whatever, and then your maybe 5 to 10 year goals and stuff. Do you want to explain kind of where you're sort of hoping to head?
I'll go back a little bit. So when it was just me and dad and my young lad Angus, we always had enough work. It was always like a month ahead. But my goal, me personally, and I've always said this to my dad, is I would like to get the bigger stuff. I'd like to be six months ahead or even a year ahead. You know, I'd love to be that far ahead and not have to worry, because I don't even remember the recession in 2009, 2010.
Oh, of course,
I mean, we had, I mean, we had like 1 or 2 days a week, and we always had enough for my dad to get by. And I was still at home then, luckily enough, and it wasn't so bad. But we never had enough for both of us. So, you know, and that's always stuck with me. We've always had work, don't get me wrong, but I would like to get the biggest stuff. I'm enjoying the bigger stuff. Currently on a big project in the moment, and I've loved it. We'll be like 7 or 8 weeks in, and that's where I like to be, doing the bigger stuff, bigger projects. And, you know, they're enjoyable.
Is that because the bigger stuff is? I mean, how does that protect you against those peaks and troughs? You know, if we had another recession or something, the bigger stuff is just because it's more profitable, or how's that?
I'll be honest with you.
Just the correlation between the peaks and troughs and the bigger stuff.
It's I mean, this has been lovely. The guy who's running the whole job, James, I don't know if it's him, but he's been amazing. So his family owned, or his wife's family owned Dean's Place. They've sold it, but they've kept him on to run the place. So we've been working closely with him, and he's been amazing. Look, don't get me wrong. Every big project you're going to get, you won't have a James, but he's made the job so nice that it's been a lovely job. And and you're on about the profit margins, probably not as big as probably what you think. That's probably down to me not having the experience of these bigger stuff, but they're just nice. It's just nice, nicer work, you know.
Okay.
You know, you're organised, you plan every day. I like that. Set targets every day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's your kind of short-term goals, really, is to get involved in that. So ironing out the kind of peaks and troughs, so that if there is recessionary times or things go down, then you've got that kind of, you know, much more smoothed out profit margins and cash flow going on, but also try and hunt down those, you know, bigger projects, which I guess is an economy of scale, even if we need, you know, if you need to tinker on like the profit margins and the way you quote the job, they're actually, you know, there's more of an economy of scale rather than doing loads of little jobs.
Yeah. There is definitely more. It's hard. Again, it's all a learning curve to me. I'm sort of just getting my feet wet with this, with the sort of bigger stuff, but yeah, no, it's definitely an eye opener. It's all a bit of an eye opener at the moment, and learning. And I'm such a small company in comparison to the bigger companies where I haven't got these big overheads and stuff. So at the moment, I'm in a good place when I price these stuff, but it's getting my foot in to price this stuff. But when I go and price for Mr. and Mrs. Smith and stuff like that, I do enjoy them, like a week or two jobs. They're nice jobs, but I'm just enjoying them.
Where do you get your foot in the door with these bigger ones then at the moment? How do you approach that?
Good question. So the one I'm on now, it was for a guy in our BNI.
Yeah.
So when Dad passed away 2 years ago, I initially went down there and priced the job, and Steve Dan was my contact in this time around.
Yeah.
And the guy James said, "Look, Luke needs." My quote didn't look professional.
Yeah.
But that was another thing for this job and these bigger stuff. I had to look a bit more professional. So I've had some good people around me. Laura, who's helped me, Laura King.
Yeah.
Steve got me in. And then once I got my foot in the door, people seem to like me once I'm in the door. And I think that's first impression and everything. But now, as you get these bigger jobs, it's all like the reps. So like Balder, for instance, is like another felt manufacturer. You've got to have your tickets and then you can start. But what I'm finding the problem is at the moment, me personally, is that I haven't got that many tickets, and you've got to offer these bigger felt manufacturers something to get in.
Yeah.
But once you get in, then you're pricing against everyone else, and then it's sort of fair game.
When you say tickets, explain like
so
the audience.
So what you got to do. So the one I'm on now, it's a Suprema spec. Suprema is an Italian manufacturer, but they're in the UK. They're worldwide, but what they do is a 25-year guarantee. So they check they come halfway through, or 5 weeks in. So he's already been.
Yeah.
It gives a report on what we've done. All excellent so far. It comes back, I think, another week. Then he comes at the very end and he passes the job. And once he's passed, we will be approved contractors for Suprema.
Right, okay,
So once you do one, like a 1,000 metre job, you say, for instance, you're in.
Yeah, yeah. And then they can recommend you to the larger companies.
So what they'll do, it'll go out to tender. So they'll be, see, my long-term goal, I have to be honest, is schools. I mean, so we used to work for a firm for the last 30 years. My dad did, called West Sussex Roofing. They did schools. We did a school fair every year. I loved it. 6 weeks in school. It was probably some of my best time in roofing, really. And that's what I would like to do, get into schools, but getting there. Getting there. Getting in and getting through them doors is hard.
Well, I think that, my advice on that kind of short-term thing would be definitely try to build yourself like a kind of hierarchical or moat or a force field around your business by becoming accredited and getting those tickets and the rest of it. The last podcast guest on, we had the same thing where they've got some industry changes which are going to challenge them. But actually, I think that if you allow yourself to kind of like elevate you above the rest of it, you basically become protected against your kind of smaller contractors starting up. You'll never compete against Joe and his mate who are going to be roofers or whatever. You'll get into a different league there. And then I think, once you've achieved that, then you're kind of ring fenced from that, because the barrier to entry is harder because you can't just go and get these bigger jobs. And I think that you're right about the schools. I would also be looking at the supermarkets and things like that. I know they're notoriously, I won't say bad payers, but they have a very long remit for payment. And I know why they do that, because there's cash flow for them. They have like a cost cash flow analysis. So they buy products, sell them, and then the cycle of that has to then fund any repairs to the stores. It's a complicated business model, but I do think that they're quite profitable and good works. I know they don't always have flat roofs, a lot of them, the tins and stuff like that, but you could look at subbing some of those elements out and stuff, working with other companies. But definitely the supermarkets, because I think they get their favourite customers and then they just kind of give you all the work because they know you're nice and reliable. And those are particularly good contracts to have, like your schools, your hospitals, all those sort of things. Your rugby clubs and stuff like that. Those kind of bigger jobs, if you like, if you can get in with those. NHS. Yeah,
that's the dream.
It's about finding those and targeting, and I'm wondering whether, like, at some point, obviously you like to be on the tools, and I know we talked off camera, one of your goals is maybe in like 10 years time you might not want to be on the tools as much, but like, I don't know who goes out and gets those businesses for you, whether it's worth maybe looking at getting a business development manager in to get those relationships formed for you, and go after those works. Otherwise, if you're on the tools all the time, who's actually pursuing your supermarkets and your schools and stuff?
That's the problem I've got at the moment. Obviously, I'm doing stupidly long hours at the moment, getting home, and then all the paperwork to do. It's having a balance, right? And that's something I'm struggling with now, because I've got a big job now, but I've got to keep work coming in. And if I don't pull away for half a day here and there, or, and that's, but it's like you say, getting off the tools. I mean, long term, definitely. I think within 10 years, it's a good target, right? It's a good
I think if you are in, your heart and passion, you love doing the actual job. And I come across a lot of people like this, like they set out, they want to be lawyers, solicitors, coffee shop owners, roofer, whatever it is. And that's their passion and they do that. But they then also have this underlying passion that they want to grow the business. But they probably might not be the best skilled person to do that, in the sense that they've still got a passion for doing surveying or accountancy or whatever it might be. So whether you outsource it initially to like an outsourcing firm or you employ someone to do it for you, in order to reach your goal, someone's got to go out and actually who's the target market? Are we going after your Asdas or your schools or the NHS, and how are we actually going to get those? And it's quite a scary investment to make in those sort of person, because you don't know if it's going to pan out. But the thing is if that person does their job properly, then they bring you in so much work that actually they become like a fee earner in their own right. I find especially in the trades industry, it's very hard to kind of like, when you employ people, it's almost like I employ you and I pay you XYZ and I know you're going to bring back XYZ. Whereas like office staff or marketing, business development managers, it's much harder to quantify what they're actually bringing back.
I've never looked at bringing someone in or trying to speak to someone who could help me get in with these bigger projects. I've never looked at it in that way. But maybe it will be the way. I mean, I'm speaking to the rep what I'm on now, and he's looking to, they get a list of big projects, but I'd only be a list on whoever they've got out doing the work, which is fine. I can live with that. But it's just
I mean, I'm thinking you maybe don't necessarily have to employ someone. Obviously, I'm a big fan of like outsourcing if you can. So someone like Laura, for instance, you could get somebody like her in initially just to basically write touting letters and target people and get your foot in the door. I mean, you can do silly things, send them an actual shoe and then tell them that there's a foot in the door, something like that. So they remember you, who you are, and maybe try and get those meetings set up with people and the rest of it. Because if you're not doing it, then who's doing it is the question. And they're not going to just come and fall on your lap, are they? No. Those people, they won't just look in the yellow pages or Google and find you. No. Dean's Place is obviously, it's a local venue for those who don't know what that is, but you'll pick up those types of jobs. But if you want those bigger kind of NHS schools, local supermarkets in the southeast, I think you probably need to get someone to actually go and get your foot in the door and develop the business.
Finding that person.
It is. It is. But you, I mean, I always go on the kind of like, hire a slow, make sure that they're the right person. And then if they're not panning out, then you do need to let them go, as brutally honest as that is. But ultimately, if you find that right person, they'll be worth their weight in gold for you, because they'll bring you in far more work than you can really do yourself. Or if you don't have the drive and the passion to do it because you want to be on the tools and running the jobs, then that's fine.
What would realistically be if you've got something like that, how many jobs would you be tendering for a year? Yeah. If you've got someone in, that's the question. If you're tendering for 10 to 20 big jobs a year, I mean, that sounds quite a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think you need someone like that who can get you leads into business. There'll be your competitors, for example. Look at the people that are like twice as big as you. Like we've got a local one in Eastbourne, which we won't name because it's your show. But those guys, you come across them an awful lot, begin with the letter C, and they have a business development manager in that business who will go out and find those things, and they do their marketing for them as well. And they are an advocate for that business, because I'm guessing the owners have recognised that their skill set doesn't really extend themselves to that. There's another company in Eastbourne, I don't know, you heard of Matrix at all? They're contractors. Yeah. So the owner of that doesn't really do any of the business development as far as I can work out. He's got a guy that does that for him because he's the face of the business. He's the person that they represent. But the other guy is like obviously the owner or bigger shareholder or whatever. I don't know their exact structure, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the owner hunting down leads.
I'm okay, I think, once I'm in the door, but I think someone's going to be better than me at getting the door, opening the door.
Exactly, definitely. And I think if you pick the right person, they're worth their weight in gold. And you could try outsourcing to start with. So someone like Laura could, maybe just single out people, write them touting letters, get you some meetings booked in, that sort of thing. And then you can see how that's going to go. And you go, well, I'm spending almost half my time pitching now and I'm not enjoying that, but now's the time to actually get someone in to do that bit of the
Yeah,
job.
yeah, interesting.
You've got to go. Someone's got to go and actually get that work. So.
Yeah, it's not going to fall on my lap, but I'm very lucky to get. Well, funny enough, since I started this big job, I've managed to price a couple more big ones, well, fairly sized jobs since that. So,
yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
So we'll move on a bit from that. So the longer term plan. So that's like kind of like the next 1 to 3 years, really, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then moving more forward, like, you know, a sort of 10-year plan. So I find that a lot of people, they will overestimate what they can achieve in a short period, like a year or two, but then completely underestimate what they want to do in 10 years. So we're fast forwarded 10 years. You're still on the tools. You've got your business development manager. You're getting these nice big ones. What's the sort of plan from that? 10 years time, you're going to want to still working on the tools?
I think a lot of people who people who listen to this and who are flat roofers, I don't think your body, you got to keep yourself fit and healthy, right? That's half the battle, but I don't think you can keep going. I mean, my knees now, you know, I mean, even my young lad, he had 2 weeks ago, he couldn't walk, you know, because of the problems with your knees. So I think by the time you're 50, or early 55, you've got to be coming away from the tools, and you've got to be in a place where you can help. I can help the business, but in another way. So that's. I mean,
I suppose my kind of medicine or whatever, I would be thinking that in 10 years' time, you need to get the business to a point where you're not really required in it. You're not running the jobs anymore. You're not necessarily needed on site, and your business development manager has built all those relationships for you and the rest of it. And then you're at a crossroads. You can decide you're going to carry on running it and maybe do like a sort of MD type role or whatever. Or you can say, look, I'll allow a management buyout. Maybe your senior staff might want to buy the business off of you or whatever it might be. But you're in a position where you can make a decision. You're not stuck having to do the tools because the business hasn't quite grown to the point where it doesn't rely upon you being in it. You know, that's the kind of, it's not necessarily you've got an intention that you're going to leave or stop working or whatever. You might choose to do something different, but you have a choice. And if you don't get it to the point where you've got a choice, then you're stuck doing that, haven't you?
Yeah, you have. I never looked at it like that, really. I'd always like to be involved. I'm not saying you don't have to walk away, but yeah, I mean, it's something interesting. I think the next 2 or 3 years are big. I mean, I've carried on as I have been for the last 6-7 years. I think since we joined BNI, I was going to use BNI for an instance. Since we joined BNI, we've touched wood. Work's been consistent, you know, and more consistent since I joined BNI. But not walking away, but yeah, I mean, that
with the BNI thing, I mean, obviously I do BNI, we're in the same chapter, but I would say it's very good for stability of all those small jobs and the rest of it. Yeah. But not knocking BNI, I'm not sure the kind of people that are referring you, if you like, have access to the the right type of client for you. If you analysed all your jobs that have come as referrals through BNI and the values of them and whether or not, I mean, Dean's Place aside, maybe, they're not that kind of, they're not the schools, the NHSs and the rest of it. So whilst I think BNI probably is a really good levelling out the peaks and troughs, it's good bread and butter money and the rest of it, and keeps your name there. And there's something for marketing your own business and the owner being there. In order to get to those other jobs, I think probably BNI is not the right route.
No, you're right.
I do think that business development manager type role, of however you see fit, whether it's outsourced initially or
you may get lucky with someone like yourself, with what you do. You know, if I meet another person like you in another BNI, you know, who can throw me the odd block of flats here and there. Like, you know, that's
You're talking like BNI is good for like sub £100,000 works.
Yeah.
If you want to be doing the roofing works at like $500,000 or $250,000 or something, that's more akin to your schools and your Sainsbury's and all that kind of other supermarkets available. All of that sort of stuff, really. I'm not sure the BNI has that kind of connection for you. So I think it's good use of your time, but your business development manager, like I see a lot of people grow their business to that and then they send their business development manager to BNI, and I'm like, well, if your goals are a type of client that doesn't exist in that environment, then that's almost a waste of their time.
Absolutely,
So I think that's some good points we touched on there. One thing I wanted to touch on was when we were off air, you mentioned that you're a sole trader at the moment and you're not sure whether going limited is ready for you. I don't know kind of what your feelings are about that, if you want to share that.
Yeah, obviously I've always kept the same as my dad. My dad's
Yeah.
always been a sole trader, but like you say, when you're a 1 to 4 or 5 man band, you're pretty much stuck in your ways, really. I think if I start getting the bigger stuff, I think I will have to change. And I would like, I've got a lad who I taught,
Yeah.
and he's at a level, and it would be nice to give him incentives. So if you're a limited company, you can give him shares, can't you? You can do all this sort of stuff. And
I mean, I personally think it won't really work for you if you stay as a sole trader. I know that sounds pretty blunt, but if you're dealing with the likes of Waitrose, Sainsbury's, schools and the rest of it, and you're a sole trader, then it's unlikely that they'll want to deal with you just because they don't regard that as like enough of an entity, if you like. Because with a limited company, you go on company's house, download the account, see what your liquidity is like, all that kind of stuff, and your turnover, how many staff you've got, directors and the rest of it. That's not obviously disclosed if you're a sole trader because effectively you're only doing your own tax return for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably, if you're a sole trader, Sainsbury's, for example, if I'm not picking on them, other supermarkets are available, but the person that employs you can come after you personally for, if say you didn't do a very good job, or if there was an accident on site, maybe some of the staff could come after you personally. You're much better protected with a limited company through that vehicle because you get insurance to protect you and all that sort of stuff. And then you obviously, there are much more tax efficient things to do. I mean, I can't give a tax advice, but for a limited company, obviously you can draw dividends out, which is probably what you do at the moment in terms of drawing money out for yourself. But there are lots more tax reliefs, like if you invest money into the business, buy machinery, all that sort of stuff. You can pay corporation tax, which is a lot lower. You could put some money into your pensions, all those sort of things. There are a lot more benefits, but I do think that as a bigger, companies that you want to work with, if they look and they go, what's the company? And you don't say Robert Martin Roofing Services Limited or whatever you choose to call yourself, then that might turn them off a little bit because they go, oh, we're dealing with somebody who's a little bit too small, I would say. I think it's right or wrong is an image thing. I think limited is like regarded as just being a bit bigger.
My dad's always the opposite of that. He's like, well, if you can't back your work as a sole trader, then, but like you say, it's funny how these bigger, like the schools and the supermarkets, they would prefer to be limited because, like you say, you go after the business, not the person. But if you're a sole trader, they can come after me. I know what you're saying.
But they can come after the assets.
Come after the assets,
and the rest of it, and they understand that there is that there. It's more tax efficient for yourself. It's also, you touched on it yourself as well about being able to offer your staff incentives and the rest of it, and your customers will have a contract, and the contract will be with the limited company. So you might have like a regular thing, like you've got to go to this supermarket, school or whatever it is every single year, survey it and then repair whatever's wrong with it. And that might be an ongoing rolling contract. You can sell that contract on a lot easier if it's under a limited company's name. So like if your staff are going to buy you out, no different to, I guess we heard on the other week with a haulage company, they did a management buyout. It's a lot easier for them to do that when there's already those contracts in place and you can then shift them around. There's lots of tax advantages, and obviously you need to take your own advice on it. But I would say, for right or for wrong, bigger companies will probably not want to do business if you're still a sole trader. And I think from a staffing point of view as well, some staff like to know that you're bigger. It's just being limited is like almost hand in hand with being a bit bigger, isn't it, in people's minds? Yeah. So if you're going to employ that business development manager, or you can have a senior team, and then you're going to end up having to have staff that are, say back office accountancy or something like that, collecting the invoices payable and invoices due, they're going to want to know that they're employed by a limited company and there's some sort of structure there. And also it's a good protection for yourself, because if it does go wrong, then they come after you personally. Whereas under a limited company, you can be like, right, I am able to like come out of this relatively unscathed to some degree. I'm not going to hopefully lose my own house unless you've signed a load of personal guarantors or something. And that will allow you to, I'm sure that I mean, if I was in Sainsbury's shoes or whoever it would be, I probably would not even, I would discount a sole trader personally. Just the way their business models are, their remits, they want to be able to look you up on Companies House, who see who the directors are, VAT numbers, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot easier to do. So I think I'd recommend you doing that. It doesn't mean that you can still do sole trader work. You can run both firms alongside each other if you needed to. You could always go, well, I'll still do that if Mrs. Smith wants to deal with a sole trader. And I do think your dad's right, in the sense that, back your work up and all that sort of stuff. Like, don't hide behind a limited company. But I think it's probably a slightly outdated view on it now in the modern world. I think it would do you good to do that, in my opinion. And then that would allow you to at least go for those bigger contracts a bit easier, I think.
Something to think about for sure. I did have a chat with my accountant before about it. It's like jumping into the unknown, isn't it? It's something I don't know. If I've already limited, it wouldn't be a problem because I've never been there. But definitely something to
surprises me at the level of turnover you've got and the jobs you did that you haven't gone limited. If I'm honest, you're quite unusual to have not gone limited at your size. So that should resonate with you, that actually it's probably less done what you're doing now than it would be to be limited. I get the unknown thing. Everyone's always scared of that, but then that's like the sort of next steps, isn't it? If you want to get to those goals, you've got to start doing those things. It's a bit like taking
for sure.
Say like taking your business development manager on. It's a step into the unknown, isn't it? It might not work, but if you don't do that, who's going to actually go after those contracts?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. It's something I will definitely look at going forward for sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think, we'll kind of draw to conclusion and wrap up from there. But I would say definitely going limited. Look at that business development manager, even if it's outsourcing to someone like Laura initially, tidying things up, getting the quotes in the CRM systems and all that, so that you're ready to go and get those bigger contracts and iron those things out. And make sure that you supply them with the information that they need to who your actual ideal clients are, your niches and the rest of it, so they can go off and get them to really build you that, so that then you've got those kind of nice smaller jobs ironing out the peaks and troughs, but then you've got those bigger ones that are going to come back and give you that kind of nice big payday type stuff. And you're ring fencing yourselves from your smaller competitors then, aren't you? You're limited. You've got all the tickets, you've got the qualifications, the experience and the ability to do those bigger jobs. And at that point, you can be like, right, okay, we're now not competing with Joe Bloggs down the road, who's a roofer with 3 men for price. And then, and on you touch on the subject of pricing as well. At some point, it's probably good to check your prices against the market rate, because you're entering into a bit where the scope for liability is quite high with those bigger jobs. You don't want to get stuffed on one, do you, or whatever?
No.
And if your prices are loads cheaper than everybody else, that's really nice and good for you, but there might be a reason as to why those people are putting much higher markups on those things.
You can be too cheap, right? And I think, and that's the worry. I don't want to be too cheap. But I think, like I say, as you grow and get bigger, the overheads get more. All these bigger firms got way more overheads than me. So
they do. And when you get to that point, that's when your business development manager, maybe your procurement manager or your quoting person, whoever you might scale to that size, that's where they'll be worth their weight in gold, because they'll be saying, look, you can't quote that job at that price because it doesn't even cover the staff wages or the overheads or the fact we've got a bigger yard now because we've got to store the stuff, or whatever it might be. It's always a constant goal, and you will discover, if you investigate, why their price is like almost double yours. It's probably for those reasons.
Yeah.
Really.
Sure.
Okay. Brilliant. Well, I hope that's really helpful to you.
Yeah,
And
no,
give you
I've
some
really enjoyed
food for thought.
Yeah, no,
And,
definitely.
yeah, I would definitely look at all those things if I was you to get to that kind of 10-year goal where you have a choice. You don't have to down tools, so to speak, if you want to carry on. But without a choice, you are stuck with whatever you've got to do. So
I think
it's good to work
I'm
towards.
in a good place.
Mm.
But yeah, if you want to get into probably a bit more of a better place, then I have to.
Yeah, the 10-year goal is much easier to achieve. So if that's like, I just want to be in 10 years' time in a position where I can make a decision.
Yeah.
If you can't be in that position, then you're kind of, you're forced into whatever route that you go down. So
Yeah.
Super. All right, it's been lovely having you on, Luke.
No, thank you.
And
Enjoy
I
it.
hope that's really good. And feel free to share all the stuff on your socials and the rest of it.
Will
I'm
do.
sure Danny will give you some copies and things. So brilliant. Be good to maybe get you back on in a year or two's time.
Yeah.
See where you're at. Yeah.
Yeah.
See if Laura's been able to help you, or if you found somebody else, or whatever it might be. Yeah. Cool. Brilliant. All right. Cheers.
Thank you.
So I think a really interesting conversation there with Luke, and a lot similar problems to a lot of business owners. So not unique there at all. They're concerned about making the next steps, investing in their people. How do they get to their 10-year goal? Or they've got like a goal that they want to achieve. So say you want to go after those bigger contracts or a niche market or whatever it is, but can't quite figure out how to put this all together and actually get through to those customers and get their feet in the door. And as we'll discover today, perhaps Luke isn't the best person to do that. It's not always the role of the owner or the founder or whatever, the most senior person, to go out and get those things. So I really hope that's useful to everybody, including Luke as well, in his journey on kind of discovery and reaching that point that we talked about getting to his 10-year goal. So he's actually got some options and he's not kind of stuck with what he wants to do. So if you want to come on the podcast and have a chat and maybe figure out some solutions to your problems, no different to what Luke's done today, please just email us at info@matthewcox.biz. That's Matthew with 2 T's, and Hayley or somebody will book you on. You'll get like a pre-listed load of questions and the rest of it. And then you'll get on the show, and then hopefully everyone learns something from it. You can use it on your own socials. And then whilst just a little quick request, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, don't forget to comment below, and that will really help it get out to other business owners, and we can get some super guests on as well.